Hello, I am Raven, and today I'm going to be doing a makeup tutorial on the look that I'm wearing right now. A nice kind of cranberry shimmery eye with a red lip. Pretty simple, but very festive. So if you want to get this look, just go ahead and keep watching. All right, first things first, put my hair back. Because we do not want it in our faces. All right, step one. All right, I know everyone does their makeup in a different order. Some people like to do foundation first and then eyeshadow. I personally like to do my eyeshadow first and then all the face product afterward. So we will get started on the eyes real quick. I just use concealer as a foundation for my eyeshadow. I don't really wear makeup for very long, so I don't have to worry about longevity or anything like that. So I just put a little bit of concealer on both eyelids. I use my foundation brush to buff it out. Just like that. And then I will go in with a very light shade to set that concealer. Let's see. So I'm going to be using the Naked Cherry palette mostly for today, since we are going for a cranberry sort of look. Whew. And this palette has a lot of reds, a lot of cranberries, so it's the perfect one. But I'm going in with this first shade here called Hotspot, and like I said, just setting the concealer. Just like that. I'm getting mighty shiny here. This sweater is very hot, and it is quite warm inside today. So I apologize for being very red. I promise I'm not like this all the time. Alright, so now that we've set the concealer real quick, just with a light color, just make sure that's all over, just so the next eyeshadows that we put down will be relatively easy to blend. I'm just going to use this same brush, just a fluffy angled brush, and go into this shade right here called Feels, just very lightly at first, and just put that right on the brow bone here, right above your crease. And you want to use just very, very light amount of eyeshadow here. We're not trying to make this very dramatic quite yet. Once you have that all applied, just take your time to blend it out with windshield wiper motions. I also do a little bit of circular motions here and there, just to make sure it's really blended. And you can kind of see this spot like right here where I first applied. Maybe had a little bit too much on my brush. What you can do is you go back into that first shade right here, just get a little bit of that, tap that off as well, and then you kind of just go over it a little bit to lighten that up. So now you see why light application is important, especially when you're using colors like red. It's very, very noticeable if you have like a stamp right there on you. All right, and once that is blended to your satisfaction, go ahead and do the other eye. All right, and same thing, you're just gonna wanna blend with these windshield wiper motions. My brush is broken. It's very old. I've had this brush for years and years, but it has served me well. And obviously I still use it even though it's broken. Alright. Nice, so now that we have that first red color down, we can start getting a little bit more intense. This first color is just like kind of the transition color. The way I like to do my eyeshadow is like light to dark. That way it looks nice and blended. And so this outer color here, you want to make sure it's like nice and diffused because that's going to be the very outer layer, I guess, of the eyeshadow. And so you want it to be very blended. Alright, so for our next eyeshadow color, I'm going to be using this fluffy brush. You can see it's very similar, but it doesn't have that angle. It's gonna just be a little bit more precise with its application, which is what we want. And the color that I'm going to be using for this is in the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. Let's see, it is the color Roxanne right here. A nice reddish brown. It's also matte, which is what I want. We're going to be adding a little bit of shimmer later on, and I like to use mattes for the blending and then shimmer as a little highlight. I don't really like to use shimmers to blend out anything. That's just my personal preference. You could do whatever you want. This is just what I'm doing. But okay, so we have some eyeshadow on the brush. You gotta tap it off. You don't want a shit ton going on. Like I said earlier, when you're working with reds, you gotta be pretty light-handed, otherwise you can end up with like the stamp that I did earlier. But all right, so we're gonna add this in very gently, just on that like upper portion of your crease. So pretty much like not in your crease, but like right above it. So instead of having your brush being parallel to your eye, like right here where you'd be doing that in your crease, you bring it down a little bit so it's kind of tilted upwards. We don't want to cover up that color that we just did completely, but a little bit, and that will help with the blended effect. So just add a little bit more just to deepen it up, like so. Perfect. And what I like to do when I'm working with one brush to blend and apply, I will usually apply it to both eyes and then go ahead and blend it out. That way it's not like, actually I don't know why I do that. That's just how I do it. So that's how I'm going to do it. So tap, tap. And then this other eye. Same thing, you want your brush to be like pulled down a little bit so the angle is upward. You're not going into your crease quite yet. It's just that point where your eye socket meets the bone. You're pretty much just going right on that point. Even with this headband, my hair still sometimes manages to get into my face. But that's the story of the long hair, you know? Okay, cute. All right, and actually instead of using this to blend, I'm gonna go back with this other brush, broken brush. I'm gonna have to tape that or glue it or something. Can't have it popping off. All right, and then just with that same windshield wiper motion that we did before, you wanna blend this in. Alright, so now you can just see that red color is a little bit deeper, but nothing too crazy yet. I know it's kind of hard to see on camera because this is just filmed on my iPhone with a little lamp here in front of me, so obviously not the most professional setup. But you can kind of see it's starting to deepen a little bit, which is good. That is what we want, to gradually deepen the red. All right, let's see. For the next shade, I think I'm going to use, going back into the Naked Cherry palette again. We're gonna be using one of those shades. This time we want a little bit more of a precise brush. The way I like to do my makeup is you start with really fluffy brushes, and as you go down into the crease, you get smaller and smaller, which just means you get a more precise application with a smaller brush, but it also means it's a little bit harder to blend out. So, as I was mentioning before, I will mention again, when you're working with reds, you want to be really light-handed. And so the further we go down into the crease, the more light-handed you want to be. Especially in the darker colors, you want to apply a little bit, and then if you want more, you can apply more. But, you know, just like with cooking and using your spices, you can add more, but you can't take stuff off. Obviously, makeup, you can just wipe it off and try it again, but, you know, then you have to start all over. Okay. Let's see, this is actually not the brush I want to use. This one is, okay. None of my brushes are actually clean right now, so I gotta. Okay, so this is, I think, actually the brush that came with the palette. Anyway, so you can see this brush here is just a little bit more dense than the other one. This other one is like nice and fluffy. The bristles are pretty far apart. This one's just a little bit more dense, but they're similar in size. Okay, so now we're gonna go in with this color Devilish right here. This one does have a little bit of sparkle, but just a tiny bit, so that's okay. It kind of goes against my matte wishes, but I think this color is the closest to what I want for this look. So you can see here, I'm just very lightly adding it to this outer V of my eye. Just a little bit before I go in, because I want to kind of get rid of any excess out here on the corner. Generally with my makeup looks, the outer corner is a lot darker than the inner corner. It just makes your eyes look bigger and brighter. So if you do accidentally do your little like stamp here, it's not that big of a problem. Whereas if you did it on the inside, you'd have to like blend that out a lot. So just lightly stamping here on the outer corner. I like to also angle my brush a little bit here to kind of like wing it out a tiny bit, nothing too crazy. And then now we will go in and see, before how I was angling it like this, now I'm going to be angling it like this, so that shade really gets into the crease rather than that brow bone area that we were applying to before. And also, since this is kind of a bigger fluffy brush for a crease, I'm not bringing it all the way into my corner over here. I'm just bringing it pretty much to where my iris ends, like right here. And then if I feel like it needs to be a little bit further down, we'll do that a little bit later with a more precise brush. But right now, we're just doing it on the outer 2/3 of the eye. It's a tiny bit shimmery, but nothing too crazy, so that is good. Very good. All right, and then as with all the other layers, you just want to blend away. But once you get into these darker colors, you definitely want to make sure that your brush doesn't have any excess on it. So maybe just wipe it off, blow it off, and then you can start blending with it. Because if it does still have excess and you start blending and it like goes all the way out because you had a little bit more eyeshadow on your brush than you thought, that it's not the worst thing in the world, but it kind of ruins the blend effect that we worked on, since you're pretty much just covering up the previous two eyeshadows that we did. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back with this brush real quick, wipe it off, and just blend a little bit more with this one. Since it is a little bit fluffier, it's easier to blend with. All right, and then same side, or same thing on the other side. Awesome. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just deepen this a little bit more with that same shade. So I'm just adding a tiny bit more because I really want that like burgundy red color to come out. You can see this is the one right here. I really want that color to pop out. So I'm just adding a little bit more so this shade is a bit deeper. Also what I'm doing, so I mentioned before, I kind of like to angle it to wing it out a little bit, kind of like smoke it out. I like to do my eyeshadow before my foundation so that I can kind of like wipe off any excess if I've blended down too far. But sometimes I find I don't blend out enough to kind of have that wing effect here. So I'm just adding some here to make sure that I have enough blended down. Alright, cool. I think now we can go in with our next darkest shade, which is going to be brown. Okay, let's see, there it is. Another naked brush that came with a palette. This one came with the smoky palette. All the brushes that come with the naked palettes are somewhat similar. They're all double-sided. They have like a fluffy side and then kind of a more precise side. This one has a precise kind of dome-shaped, see if you can see, dome-shaped brush. So it makes it easier to like get really into that crease for a more precise application. So that's what we're gonna be doing. All right, so this next step is really gonna like darken and deepen everything up. So we're going in with this shade at the very end here called Privacy. We're just gonna like barely dip the brush in, just like 2 taps, because you don't want to put a lot on to begin with. As I keep mentioning, you can add, but you can't subtract. Same principle here. So just like I did with the last shade, kind of just stamping any excess here just on the very corner. Kind of forming like a V here. You can see that. And then we're gonna go right into that crease. Obviously you don't want to be like gouging your eye out, but you want to push a little bit deeper than you did with that last brush. You could see I'm kind of applying more pressure here. It's really getting into that eye socket. But you know, don't hurt yourself. And since this brush is a little bit smaller than the one that we used before, if you like that kind of like cut crease look, you can take that color to the corner of your eye. That way it has that kind of like line. If you like a more like open, makes your eyes look big kind of look, just take that to the 2/3 part of your eye, just like we did with the other one. So it just depends kind of on the look that you're going for and the look that you like. Today I'm only doing 2/3 because I'm going to be adding some shimmer to the eyelid, so it's already going to be dramatic in that way. So now that I've applied that, you can see it's a little bit deeper along my crease here. I'm just gonna add a tiny bit more. To make it an even deeper color. All right, cool. So now that I've applied that, I want to blend that out. So I'm just gonna use the other side of this brush, make sure it's all clean, and just go ahead and blend that as well. Same thing, windshield wiper motions, a little bit of twisty motions, circular motions, to just blend that out. And then you do the other side. Cool. Now what I'm gonna do, just with the same color, same brush, I'm just gonna add this a little bit more to the corners of my eye. The very corner, not corners, just this one corner. The outer corner of your eye. And that kind of like V I mentioned before. I wanna do that so it goes from like your lower lash line up at the angle that you would do like a winged eyeliner. And then V right into the crease here. Just gonna deepen that up. Okay, now I'm just gonna go back and deepen that brown color just a little bit more because I want it just a little darker actually. So that's what I'm gonna do. So now that our crease is done, I'm gonna go into the actual eyelid and add the shimmer that I want. So I'm gonna be using this one right here called Young Love, a nice cranberry shimmer. I really like to apply shimmers with my fingers. It's not the most precise application, but I feel like it just looks better that way. So I'm gonna go in with my pinky. Just gonna rub it a few times. I've got that on there, you see? Tap it off, just kidding. Okay, so I'm gonna add this right into the middle here. Just little dabbing motions. Concentrating very close to my lash line. And then just moving over closer to the outer a little bit. I'm applying it, like I said, concentrated at the lash line, but bringing it up a little bit. What I don't want is to get that shimmer into the matte that we just blended and everything, the crease. So you want to be very light with your application here as well. So we just added that pretty much to the middle of the eyelid, bringing it a little bit to the side over here and a little bit to the side on the other side, but not all the way into the corner. We're going to be using a different color for that. So once you are satisfied with the amount of shimmer, go ahead and do the other eye. Alright, there we go. So we have that shimmer added. And then for the very corner, wipe your pinkies off. Make sure that's all gone. And now we're gonna go into this kind of goldy one called Turn On right here. And just a tiny bit, just in the very inner corner of your eye. Just start at the corner and kind of sweep it so it blends a little bit with that cranberry. Just like that. And then I'm actually gonna go back in with that cranberry and just kind of go over a little bit. So it's a little bit more blended. I don't know if you can see that, but it's blending very nicely. Okay, and now that we have our shimmer applied, we're just gonna deepen up the corners a little bit more, just make it a little bit more dramatic. So that same brown that we were using before, Privacy, same little precise brush here. Just gonna go in and kind of blend that in with the shimmer you just put down. If you want to add a little bit more shimmer just to make it kind of a more complete blend, you can even add this one right here. It's called Drunk Dial. Just like the tiniest bit here, and add it just right to where that dark brown meets the cranberry, so that it blends just even more. And of course the other side too. Alright, and that is it for the eyeshadow. Pretty simple, just using a lot of different colors and blending them, but relatively simple. I mean, you use your fingers for part of it, so it can't be that hard, right? But yeah, basically you just want to focus on the blending and you should be golden. But now I'm gonna do my face product. I will be right back and we'll complete the lower lash line after that. Okay, so now I've put on my foundation and concealer. I set it underneath my eye as well as all over my face. Before I like to do my blush and bronzer and highlighter and all that, or even my eyebrows, I like to go ahead and finish with the lower lash of my eye to complete the look. So pretty much for me, the rule of thumb for eyeshadow looks is as above, so below. So first I will take a fluffy brush, probably just use this one that we used before, give it a good wipe off. Cool. And then we're gonna go into this first color that we used, Hot Spot, just a little bit. And this is just basically same thing as we put above. It's gonna help everything blend out a little bit easier. So just add that to the lower lash line here. Just a little bit. Alright. And then the next color that we will use is Feels, just like we did above. But with this one, we're only gonna bring it pretty much to like the pupil of your eye. So about halfway. And just blend that down here. Blend it up here as well so it kind of connects a little bit. Well, not a little bit, so it connects. Like so. Next, we will take, let's see, probably this little precision one that we did. And we will go into Devilish right here, that red color. And with this one, you want to be a little bit more precise. And again, kind of just bringing it up to connect to the upper portion. And then you're just gonna blend that out as well. So I'm gonna use this here. It's a brow brush. very, very small, very angled, very dense. So I'm gonna go into here. And then pretty much I'm gonna put that like, not on my waterline, but pretty much on my waterline. So I'm gonna like, pretty much like move the eyelashes up and put it like at the root of the eyelash. Alright, once you have that here, we're gonna take this brush again and kind of blend that out a little bit. Not too much since we just barely put some, but enough to blend. And then actually what I'm gonna do, since I did that on the lower lash line, I'm gonna do that above as well. It'll kind of give like an eyeliner effect. So with a brush just like this, you're gonna go into that dark brown and pretty much just stamp it right on your lash line. You don't want to use vigorous motions here, otherwise you'll disturb the shimmer and then it'll like fall over your face. If you don't use like glitter glue or concealer to adhere that shimmer to your face. So you can see here I'm pretty much just like stamping this brown along my lash line. You could also just use brown eyeliner here, or black if you so choose. I want to use brown, and I don't have brown eyeliner actually, so I only have black. So you could see, you probably can't see on the camera, but it's showing up a little bit. It's just to define your lashes a little bit more. And usually when I'm doing this sort of technique, I will stop right here. Like you can pretty much see where the gold meets the cranberry, right here. Instead of stamping above my lashes, I will now go into the lash line underneath and sort of just meet it there. Because I just like the shape that it gives a little bit better. Alright. Very subtle, but you can see it just enough for it to give effect. So now this other side. And if you want this like eyeliner look to look even more defined, you can use an even darker brown, or a black eyeshadow too. That would work as well. Because we're just stamping it on, we're not using liquid eyeliner or anything like that. It's gonna be pretty subtle. Oh shit. Okay, well I'll have to fix that. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself if you can help it. Alright, and now that is done on both eyes, I'm gonna just deepen it up a little bit. Maybe I should have just used a darker brown for this, but that's okay. Alright, cool. Now to fix that, let's see. Okay, that definitely left a mark, but oh well. I'm not actually going anywhere, so that's okay, and you can't really see it on camera, so boom. For all intents and purposes, it's gone. Also, I will link all of the face products that I use down below. That way, if you feel like, wow, her skin looks really nice, you can know what I used. Or, you know, the opposite, if you feel like it looks really bad, then you know what to avoid. But I will list everything down below. But alright, now that we have the lower lash line done, as well as the kind of eyeliner that I decided to add, I'm gonna go ahead and do my eyebrows, add my blush and bronzer and mascara and whatnot, maybe a lipstick. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that all off camera. So here is the finished look. Obviously I added some lipstick, some blush and bronzer and all that. I wanted to do a little bit lighter with the blush since we had so much red going on. But yeah, this is my Cranberry kind of poinsettia winter vibes makeup. I think it's relatively easy to do. It just takes some time and patience to blend everything out, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. Let's give you guys kind of a closer look here. You can see the pretty shimmer. It's nice and blended. So yeah, if you followed along, thanks so much for following. If you just watched, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm going to try and do a few more tutorials throughout the next year. Hopefully I'll get a little bit better at it as time goes on. This is just my first one. I wanted to give it a shot, so thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting. Yeah, Merry Christmas.